Hey, I'm Tommy Chong. Welcome to High on Homegrown.
Yes, everybody. Welcome to High on Homegrown, the cannabis podcast from Percy'sGrowroom.com. In this week's Grow Guides, we're talking about mistakes we have made as panel members, mistakes some of the listeners have made in the live chat, and hopefully we can just prevent other people from making the same mistakes we have made in the past. Also on this show, just like on the Cannabis News, we have Amanda from the High Ladies podcast joining us as a guest. She discusses some of the mistakes she has made too. And of course, we also cover some questions that were sent in by the listeners in the listener mail section at the end of the Grow Guides. So I hope you enjoy this episode. I hope you find it useful. I hope you learn some things. And of course, if you have any questions you would like to ask the panel, then you can send them to any one of our social networks. Just search on whatever social network you prefer for High on Homegrown and you'll find us there. Or you can email us at highonhomegrown@gmail.com, and you can also find us over at percysgrowroom.com, the cannabis forum. So if you have questions, just shoot them at us over there. But for now, here is the episode, and I'll speak to you at the end of this. Enjoy. So I think everybody has heard the saying, it's good to learn from your mistakes, but it's better to learn from other people's. And that's what we're going to try and do here in this episode. We're going to discuss mistakes we have made. Hopefully some people in the chat will drop mistakes they have made. And, once you're aware of them, that these things happen, then I think you'll feel more confident to start your own grow if you haven't done that already. But you would also be able to look out for these mistakes before they happen and prevent it from happening at all. So mistakes, eh? This is something we've all done, I suppose. We've all done crazy things.
No, I've been perfect every grow. I've never made a mistake in my life.
There is some people who have actually done that.
Yeah. Maybe they claim they have, put it that way. You know
that's it.
Saying?
It's just a claim.
Yeah, it's a claim. We all have mistakes.
Things go wrong. I mean, I know a lot of us will be growing it indoors, but you're still dealing with plants, which is essentially dealing with nature, and nature will do whatever the fuck it wants. And so you have to try and just do your best. You will make mistakes along the way, but make notes of it, learn as you go, and there'll be less and less mistakes as you get more and more experience, and that's what makes things better at the end. So I mean, one of my big mistakes which I made was I started growing cannabis in DWC. I wouldn't say that was a mistake. It was a good medium, but it's jumping in at the deep end.
Definitely, yeah.
Definitely, it's the deep water culture. It's the deep end. Sure. And then I wanted to try soil out. So I went to the grow shop and I got some soil. I'm using my fingers there for soil, and and after about a week or two, my plants weren't looking very well. And I was wondering why. And I checked up online, and it was because I wasn't using soil. I was using cocoa. So and cocoa needs to be treated differently to what soil would. It's a hydroponic medium. And I didn't know this. And I didn't know that cocoa was considered something different from soil at that point. So that was a big fuck up. But eventually, figured out how cocoa works and got the plants looking much better. And cocoa was my favorite medium, probably still is my favorite medium to grow in, even after all this time. It's been like 12 years or something now. It's been a long time. Mm-hmm. So cocoa came to me by accident. So it was a good mistake, really. But the plants suffered for that a bit. So who else wants to share another one?
You still made it to a harvest on that one, didn't you?
Yeah, it was early in veg when I was having the problem. So I managed to learn everything and then get it up and running. And because cocoa is such a forgiving medium, when you have everything dialed in, then it ended up to be a pretty decent harvest. Nice flavors and shit. It was a good grow.
Yeah, I mean, I made the typical mistake that most new growers, not most, but a lot of new growers make, and that is thinking I know better than everybody else and buy, this light will do just fine. They don't know what they're talking about. Mistake, Everybody, well, you're laughing because you did the same damn thing, brother.
A cupboard full of them, bro. Don't worry.
You're damn right. Oh, they don't know what they're doing. Watch what I can do with this. That light.
It's my cupboard of shame.
Yeah. To be fair, it wasn't a terrible light. It wasn't a good light. It was a waste of money. But it was that was my first mistake there, is not doing my research and asking the right people about the lights before I actually made a purchase there. And there's a whole lot of places out there that'll steer you wrong. I just happen to
That's
find
it.
a
It's like,
forum at Percy's that will actually give you a fair
just
answer. And it's
don't
places
ask
like,
the people selling it, is that a good light? Because they're going to
Yeah.
say yes, regardless of if
Yeah.
it's good or not.
yeah, exactly. You have to find a place that's going to be impartial, and you have to find things like MyGrow that'll actually give you a fair review on other people's equipment.
Mhm.
But that was my biggest first mistake, was buying the cheap equipment thinking I'll just make this work.
What about you, Amanda? How many mistakes have you, what's your most memorable mistake you've made?
Oh, I make mistakes daily. Mistakes and I know each other very well.
We all do that.
I'm only this is my third grow, and I've only ever grown outdoors. So
Right.
I make right. So I guess my most memorable mistake. Okay, so I dug out, like a nice 10 by 5 patch of my yard where I'm going to plant my stuff. I get the highest quality soil that I can get from my local hydro store. I've turned this. I've set everything up, and I'm doing great. I get some beautiful clones from a friend, plant them, and don't I use city water? And kill all of my plants in like 4 days.
Wow.
Because the amount of chlorine and salt that
Wow.
my city has. So I invested all of this time, this energy, this love into creating this space, and I thought I was doing everything right. And just an oversight of mine, just the amount of chemical that's in our city's water.
Mm-hmm.
You killed them with love.
So that no, I didn't.
You watered them to death. You killed them with love.
What about you, Bubble? What are you saying?
I reckon my one of my favorites, and this was something that actually popped up on my post the other day as well, was overcorrecting for one thing. So, you're growing, let's say growing 4 like I am at the moment, one plant's not doing too well. So I've just overcorrected and just dropped the EC, or I've changed the heat, and I've got 3 that are running perfect, one that's not. And for some reason, I've just got to help that little one. And then the other 3, they start suffering because, of course, they're well past needing help. They're okay. So that's probably the worst ones for me, was doing that. And the light. Getting things, like buying things that really are above and beyond what you need, or just don't work like they're said they work, if you know what I mean. Like going and buying a whole bunch of nutrients with 8 different bottles because the guy at the shop said, yeah, this is really good stuff, man. It's really, and then you get home and you got no idea what each bottle does or why.
And this one at week 1, and this one at week 3, and this one at week 5, and this one at week 6, and this one at week 7. It's like, what the hell?
Yep. Doing that's happened.
I think that's one of the biggest ones is, especially for new growers who's buying things you don't necessarily need, or buying low quality equipment in the first place.
Well, I guess right there, we summarize that up real basically. When you're dealing with cannabis and you're a new grower, keep it simple. Everything else is just a mistake. Overcomplicating it as a new grower, that's your biggest mistake. Keep it simple. You can grow really, really good weed with really, really simple stuff.
You don't need to spend a fortune to set it up either. You get what you can to start with.
But right there, that statement again, it leads into a lot of mistakes that I've made. Again, I started in cocoa, thinking like I can do with pH paper strips, and I don't really need a meter. Well, if you're a cocoa grower and been a cocoa grower for a while, you can't do that. But you again, trying to save that money, thinking you're going to be better than the system and things like that. I saved a lot of money in the long run when I actually bought good meters and good equipment, because I don't have to replace them. So I had to suck it up in the beginning and spend the money that it takes to get the right equipment. And then after that, I'm not spending money anymore.
So we had some nice ones here in the chat. Not nice ones, but we had some mistakes here in the chat. Let's say that. Thinking like a pro is a good one to start with, Jilla. Definitely. Don't think that you know everything straight away. You can read all these books and do all the research beforehand, but there's nothing like hands-on experience. So, you can start to get more confident after a few grows, but Yeah, never really get too confident and think like a pro, because that's when you get complacent and things start to go wrong. And this happens to me quite often. It's not like I think I'm a pro. It's just I start to get lazy. And the more lazy you get, the more things go wrong. And then you have to, fix up, get strict again, and make sure that you're checking your plants every day and all that shit. And then they'll be good for a while. But you start to get tired and start to get a bit complacent. And it goes around in circles like that. So always stay switched on. Don't underestimate how easy this can be sometimes. Because if you do that, then it will start to get difficult to keep you occupied. And we had some other ones, which was Billy says, who has bent over to look at one of the plants and the plant behind you? That must be, and broken the branch of the plant behind you. That must be common. Yeah, for sure. When you're in there and you lean over to look at the one at the back and you lean on a fucking branch and break it. That happens.
I'm just going to adjust this one fan over here next minute.
Oh gosh!
On top of the seedlings.
drop the running clip-on fan on top of the plant, and you hear as it grinds. It grinds the branch up.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, I can relate to the dropping shit on my plants, because I did that just the other day. I went to adjust something and dropped like a half of my fence onto my plants and broke half of my plant. I took out like I don't know, 8 branches. And at that point, you just go, you just breathe in and breathe out and smile.
Yeah,
is that what you do? That's not what I do.
Well, that's what I did, because I couldn't. At that point, I couldn't. So and you know what? I didn't know what to do. So I did nothing. So I did nothing. So I like clipped my branches and gave up.
Right.
So I didn't wrap it, and I didn't protect it in any way. And I know I'm going to hear it from Annie when she gets back.
But shit happens, man.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, exactly. That's where I'm at right now. It's funny to hear you guys talking about this, because I can relate to every single one of, like, oh, I did that last week. Oh.
Yeah, grows don't always go perfect, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And that's the message we need to give everybody. Hey, we all make mistakes. We've all done these things.
480 homegrown says, I broke one, freaked out, and my wife said, quit you crybaby, nag, and tape it back up. 2 weeks later, it was the strongest part of the plant. And that's it as well. The mistakes are fixable. You can't just panic straight away. You can tape these things back up and they can get better over time. But, sometimes it is too far and too much. And sometimes you're just plenty on the plant. You don't really need to keep it,
No, I mean, I've more than once
should try harder.
Done stupid things like bumping the electrical cords for the extractor, and running the next thing, the tent's half a day with no extraction going. Just happened to cruise by the tent, and you're at 40 C, like 110 degrees Fahrenheit up in there. It's going like,
my brother tried to do this once, the whole growing thing, and he set himself up a 4 foot by 4 foot tent, 600 watt HPS it was back in those days. And he set it all up. It was like, yeah, you're good to go, man. Just do this. I went and visited like 5 days later, and the seedlings were just little brown dried out stems, man. What the fuck have you done to this? And he didn't turn the extractor on, and it had been running for 4 days, a 600 watt HPS with no extraction. It's like, did you not notice how warm it was in here? What the fuck?
Surprised you didn't melt the tent.
Yeah, man.
HPS running, holy crap.
So that's people make mistakes, man. It happens. It's just the way it is. This is how you learn. It's the best lessons you'll learn from
I've
mistakes.
had an auto watering system malfunction and flood my tent. I forgot to put an anti-siphon piece in it, the backflow thing, and go in there and you got 1.5 inches of water in your tent. Oh well, you just gotta. Luckily, it didn't go over the overflow tray, that kind of thing. But you make mistakes. You just got to clean it up and keep going. Figure out what you did and don't do it again.
A common one people make often when they're new to this shit is overfeeding. Overfeeding is a problem that everybody has at one point, really, unless you're growing in organics and just watering for the whole grow.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of that stems from we don't understand plants that much. You know, if you have an animal and you want it to get bigger, you can feed it more and it'll fatten it up, right? It doesn't work that way with plants. They only eat so much. So yeah, we think feed them more often, and they'll get bigger faster. It don't work.
Oh man,
Well,
only take what it wants, really.
There's a fine line. There is a fine line. You can
There
walk
is.
that line, but it takes a while to work out where that line is.
Yeah, you're
And you
exactly
will kill
right.
a lot before you find that line.
Yeah, but I mean that's our mentality. You just feed them more, and they'll get fatter faster because that's how we live our lives. Overwatering is probably
Yeah, that's
one
it,
of the
yeah.
bigger things that I've seen. And it all depends upon your media. Of course, in DWC, you can overwater your plants. You'll be fine. If you're overwatering, you're overflooding, right? But yeah, a lot of soil growers, you see that very, very frequently over at the forum, is that soil growers especially need to learn how to not water their plant as much. And that's something that new growers frequently have big issues with. Again, it's to kill it with kindness. You think you're going to water it more, it'll grow faster and grow bigger. The opposite is exactly what it is. You know, the right amount makes it work.
Stutty said here, I cooked all of my soil on the cooker to kill all the insects because I had seen people speaking about it, about cooking soil on YouTube. Was the soil hot after that, Stutty?
This is soil from the pasture, so you know this has got all kind of good manures and stuff in it. You can imagine, and he puts this in the oven. I can imagine what that smell was like as it was cooking there. But yeah, you cooked all the microbes out of your soil.
Yeah, be careful what's out there on YouTube. I mean, there's a lot of good information out there, but there is bad stuff too. So it's best to always go to a forum and try and get information. When you're new to this shit, you know, if something doesn't seem right, like is cooking my soil a good idea, then we're probably going to tell you it's not, unless you're in certain situations where you don't have neighbors, you can cook it outside, you know, and shit like that. But really, you shouldn't have to do that. There's other ways around it. But again, it's things that we do when we first figure out how to do this shit, you know?
Yeah. And, you know, of course, one big mistake that any new grower that walks over to a hydroponic store with no plan is going to make is you're going to overspend, because those guys in those stores, you know, they probably aren't on commission, and they're going to sell you whatever they can get you to buy that day. So before you walk in that hydro store trying to buy your nutrients and buy everything, have an idea of what you need. Ask around, find a community that you trust, because they'll take your money. They don't mind.
Oh yeah. Yep. Salesmen see you coming a mile off. They know.
Well, Four Plants has got one here, and this is a common one. I have done this quite a few times before, is not labeling 20 odd clones in my veg tent. I don't mean like 20 odd clones, but if you're doing different strains, make sure you label the pot properly. Don't just stick a sticker on the side and hope for the best, because when you're watering, sometimes that sticker gets wet, falls off, and then you lost track of it. Try and use them proper little things that go in your pot that you can write on, and you ain't gonna forget what it is or lose the label somehow. That's happened to me quite a few times. That's always a pain in the ass.
Yeah, I had a problem with that, with using that kind of stick-in label on my last grow. I went to repot, and that label fell out of one of the pots, because it was going from a 1 gallon to a 3 gallon pot, and it just fell off the edge. So I didn't realize I was missing this thing, and I had no idea. Was this God bud or was this strawberry cough? I had no idea until it started flowering. Then you have to go by, okay, this smells like this looks like that, kind of thing like that. But I've done it. Yeah, you lose your plant tag, you have no idea what you got.
Yeah. So that's one you should bear in mind. So, you know, don't overfeed the plants. That's always an important one. It's a big mistake people make often. And labeling the plants properly. Make sure it's labeled well, so you're not going to forget what it is or lose track of what plants are what. What other ones can we recommend here?
Selecting the right strains. So that, you know, if it's your first couple of runs, don't be going for the crazy exotic that only grows in one part of the world, and then you've got to try and get everything to that, you know, that perfect environment to get it going. Because 9 times out of 10, you know, it's just stick with the ones like white widows, blueberries, things like that are just they're solid. They've been around for a long time. They can deal with pests. They can deal with heat and pH swings. You know, things that you're gonna naturally stuff up. and things like that are going to happen. You're going to have, if it's your first couple of goes, you're going to have pH swings. You're going to have issues where you overfeed by accident, or the heat goes through the roof, or there's so many different variables that you've got to work together. So having a strain in there that can cope a little bit with that, great idea.
And don't get anything too, you know, for the first few grows, if you grow indoors especially, don't get anything too sativa dominant, because if it stretches and it's really tall, it's going to take over all the space in your tent and shit, and you don't want that to happen. So keep it hybrid or indica dominant. You should be okay.
Yeah, I remember reading in my first grow, everyone has so many opinions on the internet, and if you haven't found a good grow room that you trust and advice that you trust, you'll be like me. You'll hunt around and you'll try and find information from anybody and everybody. And opinions on defoliation were crazy around the site. And when I first grow, I thought that every time a fan leaf started forming, you need to get rid of that. That's in your way.
Yeah.
And that plant didn't yield too well in the end there, because I was defoliating way too much. And I've
It's a good
changed.
point.
I mean, I defoliate almost none now. I mean, it's very, very minimal. I do a one good lollipop and maybe just a little bit for airflow beyond that. But I learned the hard way that the plant needs those leaves to make
That's how it makes food, man. That's
If
leave
it
them
don't
on.
have food, it don't make big buds.
Exactly.
So you got to leave a lot of that stuff. And defoliation was a major problem for me for the first 2 grows.
Yeah, getting a little bit scissor happy. It happens a lot.
It
Thinking
does.
you're doing the plant a favor and you're not. But I mean, there is a place for defoliation. That's the other side of it. There is a place and there is a time to do it. And but I mean, if you're consistently taking leaves off that plant its entire life, it's in a perpetual state of stress. So it's going to cause lower yields and things like that, as you said. But and then of course you're taking away its food generators, the big solar panels.
Yeah, and you will find sites out there and information in blogs and diaries that are going to recommend you do this. Find your own way, but I don't believe that constant heavy defoliation is the way to grow good cannabis.
No, I don't think so either. Unless it's using the mainline manifold kind of growing something like that.
Yeah, but once you get that set up, Mackie, you do your lollipop and you don't mess with it. You don't have to mess with it.
I don't do any kind of trimming whatsoever on my plants. No kind of defoliation. I'll top them, but no defoliation until a week after the flip. Right. That's for every plant I grow now, and I've been doing that for a long time. I just the leaves are there for food, man. And if the plant doesn't need it, it will get rid of it itself. They don't fuck around. They know exactly what they're doing. Just feed them, water them, let them do their thing.
Yeah. Toward the end of their life, if you had to open up a little airflow and get rid of some of those bigger fan leaves, I've done that before too, just to keep the bud rot out of the way. But mostly the plant wants those leaves. That's, if it don't, like Becky said, if plant doesn't want those leaves, they wouldn't be there right now.
That's usually, I end up waiting until we're well after stretch and make sure that stretch is stopped, because then that's the other side of that. You start trying to defol during stretch and you're going to make stretch worse. So I normally just wait, especially with autos. I give them every chance with as much foliage as they want, because at that point, it doesn't matter if we're going a little bit over with your humidity and things like that. Airflow, I've always got airflow moving. But until I'm looking at nice big colas, I'm not worried so much about airflow. So I'm more worried about that plant being able to generate enough food.
Any more spring to mind for you, Amanda? You got some?
Yeah. No.
just put you on the spot there,
Yeah. Nothing's really crazy jumping to mind. I think we've covered all of the dumb things I've done.
Well, there's one about let's see, not planning properly, I guess is the way to put it, how much you're going to need. Usually, I know for me and a lot of growers that have come over to Percy's that we've helped along, you'll think like, yeah, I can grow one plant and it'll yield XYZ amount and that'll be fine for me. But typically, once you start growing your own, and because it's your own and because it's so good, your consumption goes a little higher. So when you're estimating what you need to grow, when you're starting a grow, estimate on the high side.
Yes.
Always better to have too much and not enough. Yeah.
Right.
But don't put too many plants in a tent. It's like 2 foot.
No, don't overcrowd. I'm not saying that, but by all means, but if you think you're going to be able to get away with one plant in one tent, you're probably going to need 2 plants. And so maybe a bigger tent.
And of course, you can always ask for help over at Percy's if you need any advice on what to set up, or you can go back and listen to these episodes from the Grow Guides, episode 1, and we run through absolutely everything you need to know. So, and you can always ask for help and just head over to Percy's. So we can help you try and reduce the mistakes, but they still happen.
Yeah. I
Well,
mean,
were you saying something there, Amanda? Sorry.
No, I was, you know what? But I was thinking how much I bloody learn every time I get on here with you guys.
Oh, right. Do you learn stuff?
I always learn stuff from you
I
guys.
think we just chat shit most of the time.
There's some education hidden in that shit.
Yeah, I think so. The more experience you get, you're like, everybody knows this stuff, right? Surely, right? But you forget what it's like to be a new grower. Where you know absolutely fuck all, and you think this is really complex when it really isn't. Once you've got your system down, it's a really easy hobby, and it's more enjoyable than it is difficult.
Yeah, I agree. I think to combat a lot of the new grower like anxiety about touching your plants, I've started like singing to my plants, and I go out and I pet them and I sing to them and I say, affirmations of lovely days for them. And I find that it makes me feel more connected to my plant, and like I'm doing something, but I'm not fucking it up. I'm not adding too much nutrient. I'm not adding too much water. I'm just, connecting.
I'll just stare at them sometimes. That I can connect enough there if I just look. How you doing? Nice. Okay, cool.
Just keeping them happy. There's loads of ways to keep them happy, and spending time with them is, the best nutrient for a plant is the farmer's shadow, as they say. So, spend time with
Awesome.
Yeah. Y'all remember your first grow, how you thought you'd never reach the finish line, right? And then after you've been doing this for a year or so like that, after, it always seems like, oh my God, I'm trimming again. You're always in a perpetual harvest mode, it feels like.
Yeah.
So it does seem to speed up the longer you do this. It seems like the cycles get a little bit easier.
And you get more proficient with it too. So the more you do something and the more you learn, the easier it becomes. I mean, it's the same with everything in life, I suppose. But when it comes to
doing less and less to see how much can it actually take before it dies.
Yeah. Go the opposite way. How much can I really push this thing?
But I think finding your community is a big part of it, right? When you don't know stuff, you gotta find people who do.
Yeah. It's good to share,
and cannabis people are the best people to share with.
Yeah, and by the way, percysgrowroom.com.
Yeah, that's it. You'll love. It's not good to do it in real life, unless you're in a completely legal place, because you put a lot of risk when people know who you are, so it's
that's right. That's right. That's something that I always forget because I have so much freedom when it comes to that. I apologize. Here I am, flaunting my freedom.
You know what I mean? Like nobody's going to say anything to me. It's just the way it is, isn't it? But but do it online if you can, because then it's a big. It's secure. Then people don't know who you are.
Yeah.
Just in case.
Yeah, you will make mistakes. There are mistakes you're going to make here, and there are things you can do better. But the best advice, the biggest mistake you're doing right now is you haven't started growing yet.
That's right. If you haven't started growing yet, that's your biggest
biggest
flaw.
mistake. Because you're paying for too much money for not that great cannabis. Grow your own. It'll be better. It's cheaper, and it's fun.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I say it all the time, but growing your own changes the game. It really does.
Yeah, when I open my cupboard and I look at all these jars staring back at me, and I figure out which one do I feel like today, it feels really good.
Yeah,
being able to choose something different and knowing that you're not having to go and hunt something down and just hope that it's going to be okay and so on and so forth makes it so much better. It takes a lot of stress off.
And find a nice community to join. That's one of the big things. Trying to wing it and just go from guides, that's a mistake people make as well, because each person grows differently to the next. Nothing is ever really exactly the same. So to find people you can ask direct questions to and get direct answers from is always a good way to go about things, man. So get involved in the community if you're new to this shit and you're involved in one yet. And we also have a Discord server, a High and Homegrown Discord server. I think you can head to Discord, search for High and Homegrown, and you'll find us. So you can join that if you wanted to get help. But, Percy's Growing is the place to be. That's the best community. Well, we have, I mean, there's so many mistakes here in the chat as well, which we still haven't even got to yet.
Yeah, I think there's one mistake I've seen new growers do, and in Block, you kind of talked about this, your strain choice. Sometimes these new growers will go in there and go like maybe a super silver haze or something like a 16-week strain.
Yeah.
When you first grow, that's a really hard one for a brand new grower to pull off.
Yeah.
Be
Takes
realistic.
a lot of patience.
By all means, be realistic. Yeah, you can do it. It can be done, and I'm not challenging anybody because I know there's somebody out there that'll do it and say, "Look, now I did it."
Yeah.
That's okay. But if you want to learn and have a little less stress, pick a shorter strain that's easier to grow. I think I saw Billy Bonds recommend something like a White Widow. Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Make sure it's not
Yeah,
something that's going to take too long. Get your shit grown first, and when you've got enough to sit on, experiment a little bit more with the strains.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. Getting yourself to a point where you've got enough. If you do a run and you want to try something different, it's not going to affect your medicine and your supply by having something go wrong. Because the last thing you need is to get all the way through to about week 14, week 15, and then shit hit the fan and you're stuck with nothing. And you've just spent all that time and all that money, and then you're going back to buying off the street because of it. So
right, 4 months from the time you drop a seed to the time you can smoke something. So yep, that's a lot of loss. 4 months.
It's another big one is reacting too quickly. When you have a problem, you find bugs or you have a nutrient deficiency or something isn't going the way it's supposed to go, and then all of a sudden you're doing shit. It's like, don't do that. We've seen people before like chop down their whole plants and start the whole crop over again when it was a simple issue that could easily be solved. They thought their plant was a male because it had calyxes on it, when in fact it was a female and it was normal growth, but they've already chopped down the plant and thrown it away. Don't ever react too quickly, man. You've always got, nothing's going to change too quickly in 24 hours. So find help, come to Percy's or find another place, whatever you have to do to get the help you need, Then
we won't name any names, of somebody over at Percy's unfortunately did something the other day. They thought a plant was male and it was in the bin before we could answer the question. It wasn't male.
Ask for help and get answers. And people don't mind, we enjoy helping other people learn how to grow, man. And this is what we do. So if you need help, if you have any questions, any doubts on anything, don't rush, get a second opinion and make sure that you've got the right diagnosis before you make any kind of actions. And that's even if it's like a deficiency on the plant and you think it's this, go and get a second opinion, because if you feed it the wrong thing, thinking that it's got a nitrogen deficiency when it's in fact CalMag or something, you don't give it the right food to fix the issue, then the issue is going to get worse and you might even start getting excess.
Right.
So don't mess around, get help, man. And don't be ashamed for asking for help either. Everybody has to learn sometimes. So
yeah. Don't first think your first grow is going to look like Instagram weed. And that's what I call it, Instagram weed, because it ain't always real up there. Plants that are actually harvested and grown by people and are intended to smoke don't look perfect when they're being pulled.
Yeah, I've pulled ones that look amazing and others that I'm like, geez, something's gone a little bit haywire here. So, and it doesn't matter. The longer you do it, the more it happens. You're gonna have some that are perfect and others that suffered a little bit somewhere along the line, and that shows in the end result. But to get some of these ones you see on Instagram, like, they're only showing you the best of the best that they've pulled. There could be another 12, 24, 150 odd plants that didn't get anywhere near that, but you're only seeing what they want you to see. So
they're showing you the 3 colas that are really beautiful on a plant that's got 50 colas.
yeah, exactly.
I've got another one before we move on, because we've covered a lot so far. This might even need episode 2 of this shit. But light cycles, man. You see people fucking with light cycles too much. If you have an auto or if it's a vegging plant, just put it on 18-6 to keep it simple, and keep it on 12-12 if it's a photo period plant to flower it. Keep it simple, man, and do tests in your grow tent before you put plants into it. It's all set up, turn it on, turn all the lights on with the extractor and everything, and see what kind of temperatures you're hitting. before you put the plants into it, and just try and get it all adjusted before the plants go in. They don't try and do things when the plants are in there because it's more difficult to get around, and you can risk damaging them as well. So be careful. Don't disturb the fucking night cycle. See that one? That one catches people out sometimes,
Yeah.
especially on photo period plants, man. Don't open up the door at the night time when it's flowering and be like, have a look at these, because that's going to cause the plant to hermy. You know, don't disturb the night cycle. Don't look at your plants in the dark. Just wait until the lights come on. Any other issues? Any more spring to mind?
I mean, I can give you mistakes, but these aren't ones that I would expect new growers to make, but I made them. I mean, things like not buffering cocoa before using it and bullshit like that. You know, just because you're a new grower, you don't know these things. You haven't read all the instructions yet. I jumped in too fast. I guess that would be my mistake, not reading the instructions before I started.
Yeah, see, I buffer all cocoa, even if it says buffered. If we've got a bag of it and it goes, oh, yeah, buffered and ready to go. No, I'm washing and buffering that, because every time I've trusted it, I've had issues. Every time I've washed and buffered, I've been sweet. So,
yep, I do it now. But first grow, I mean, where am I getting all these spots on my plant for? Well, it's stupid. Stupid.
Filmy Bowls had another one there, which was a good one, and that can happen on occasion. One time we ended up double feeding my one plant because I was high and answered the phone, then turned around. I forgot which one I was feeding. So, you know, that can happen too, man. Pay attention when you know, put 15 minutes aside, 30 minutes aside, however long you need, put that aside and have zero disturbances from that shit. You do need to focus and concentrate, mixing up the feed, making sure the plant's getting what it needs, having a check of them, making sure you're watering the right plant. You know, all this shit makes a difference, man. Just put that special time aside every day for you and your plants.
I've thrown a couple of buckets away because I wasn't paying attention, was in the grow room high, and couldn't remember, did I add this to it or not yet? I wasn't sure. And there's no way to me to tell. So it's like, okay, it's cheap to throw it away, or I can kill my plants, take a risk, one of those deals. But yeah, sometimes you just got to throw it out.
Yeah. For the sake of one feed bucket, you know, it's really not much in the scheme of things.
I have a different method to do it now. I haven't made a mistake in a long time. I line my bottles up in the order that they're going to be used.
Yeah.
And so, you know, they're in front of me. So I'm going down the line, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I already know I've already used these. I haven't used these yet.
Yeah.
You got to do what you got to do. Yeah.
I normally do the same thing, but I'll actually, when I take a lid off, I'll take the lid off and put it onto the next bottle I'm going to use. And I won't put that lid back on until, and that way I know, okay, so that's the next one in my line, because the amount, I've done the same thing, you know, accidentally doubled up on an A or a B or throwing in some extra boost or something. And then the next minute, that happens.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there wondering why the EC is sitting at 2.5. I'm like, what's going on here?
I just line them up in a line, and that's after I use the one, it goes back on the shelf. So everything that's on the floor hasn't been used yet.
Yeah.
So same basic principle, but any system that works for you. But you're going to need a system. Oh, another thing for new growers. My gosh, you know, the mistake I made is I didn't have a notebook when I started.
Oh yeah.
And you know, you really don't think about it as a big deal when you're starting out, because I'll just follow the instructions on the bottle. But I found out that I needed to write things down exactly so that I could keep my plants stable.
Yes.
The notebook definitely helped me.
Yeah, journaling 100%.
Yeah, I've done that a few times where you not thinking, you've gone through and you've not written something down. You're like, oh, did I put 30 mil of that in? Did I put 20 mil in last time? And then all of a sudden, yeah, you're starting to go from 1.2 to 1.6 or something like that on the EC. And you know, plants do not like a jump that quick.
No, they don't.
Yeah, man.
Oh yeah, kicked over a whole bucket all over the grow room carpet. Yeah.
Yeah. That is like one of my hugest fears. Like I'm walking across the grow room with this bucket in my hand. I said, okay, one day the bottom's going to fall out, the handle's going to break, I'm going to trip, something's, but I've got this vision of 5 gallons of everything going everywhere. You know, that's a big phobia for me. It's like, oh, that's one thing I don't want to do.
Yeah, it's a pain in the ass, man. I've done something similar before because I got old DWC buckets and they got a tube up the side. If anybody knows what I'm talking about, and you know, fill that with water and let it sit with the air stone in. But if you knock that tube on the side, then it starts to pour out. And I've just sat there one time and I'm doing shit on the PC, and then electricity cuts out. I'm like, fuck, did we get a power cut or something? And then I'll go up to see what happened. And as I put my foot down on the floor, it's soaking fucking wet.
Squish.
Because all the shit just
Yeah.
leaked all over the place, man.
Squish.
Pissed, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I use 20-liter buckets. I got to be real careful.
Mhm.
Like,
So, you know,
20
everybody
litres anyway.
just needs to be careful. If you're unsure of anything, ask for help. There's no shame in asking for help. You know, and then just don't underestimate that you can make mistakes sometimes, even when you're not high. This shit happens, man. People make mistakes. So just try and prevent making them as much as possible.
Yeah.
That's the
I'd
best
say
thing you can do.
growing cannabis is extremely easy to do, but there is a learning curve. But don't
Mhm.
be afraid to ask for help to get past that little learning curve.
That's right.
We
So-
all started at the same place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Knowing absolutely nothing.
Oh man, I thought I killed it the first time I finished up. I had an ounce off of each plant. Man, I killed it.
Yeah.
It's something I like to say to my kids sometimes, you know, when they're taking the piss out of me, because they can solve a Rubik's Cube 3 times faster than me and things like that. And I'm like, you know what, kid? I taught you how to use a fucking spoon. All right. And that's the way it is, man. And, you know, don't forget, there's one time where you couldn't operate simple cutlery, everybody. It takes time to learn these things. You know, and it's the same with growing cannabis, man. It takes time to learn this shit. So don't rush into anything. Take your time and enjoy it along the fucking way, man. And it'll be one of the best hobbies you have.
Yeah, don't overcomplicate this stuff. It's not as hard as you think.
Mm-hmm. But thanks everybody in the chat there for their mistakes and shit they've done. But you know,
Yeah.
just be more careful next time. Song of you.
You know, at least people in the chat are even admitting that they make mistakes.
Mhm.
We all do it. So yes.
And that's right, man. And that's another reason why I wanted to do this. And people assume because we're on a podcast and shit that we know what we're doing, and we just wing it just like everybody else does. You know, we ain't experts
We
at this
think we
shit.
know what we're
you know?
doing.
Yeah.
We think we do.
We know enough to make decent weed, but we are far from experts, just like everybody else. You know, we all make mistakes, man.
That's the nature of the game, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Billy, I still can't use cutlery. Me either, bro. I don't, like, you know, I go to one of those fancy restaurants and they're like, oh, what are you doing using a salad fork for your entree? I'm like, fuck, man, it's a fork.
Yeah, fuck you, man. Bring me my scampi. Shut up.
I don't need no pork to be scampi.
Shit. So there we go, Amanda. Is there anything you think we can add to that?
I don't know. I think you nailed it.
Yeah. It's just
I can't add anything.
There's a lot of things that you can overdo and make mistakes at. But the thing is, everything you can make a mistake at can be corrected.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Arnie's put a good one there to finish it off. He says, my biggest mistake was not growing weed earlier. I feel
That's what
that.
we're saying. That's your
That's
biggest
it.
mistake is not
Mhm.
starting now.
That's
Mhm.
right. Do it and keep
You
it to
really won't
yourself.
regret
Don't
it.
tell anybody. But that's
If you
part of the
do it
free
right,
rules.
That's it. Wonderful. Open up your cupboard and seeing all that free weed that you grew right there in your cupboard that belongs to you and nobody else.
Mm-mm-mm.
Yeah.
And it smells delicious. Right. So we do have a couple of questions which we should cover as well. Just a couple of listener mail questions. One of them you might be able to help with there, Amanda. It's a outdoor growing kind of question. So I have a question. Do you think that cannabis plants or any other plants in general prefer a color? I'm about to repaint the tall fence in the backyard next to the plants, and I'm wondering if I think it means specific color, would be beneficial for the growth of the plants. What do you think, Amanda?
Ooh.
What color is your fence?
Oh, I have a very boring brown fence.
Right.
I do. You know what? But that might be the inspiration I need to change that. I was thinking about doing a rainbow during the pandemic, so maybe that's what I need. No,
Yeah.
but I think blues are so nice and greens.
Well, I think if anybody wants to use make their growth better on their plant by painting the fence a particular color, then white is going to be your best one, because white is white because it reflects all colors. So, you know, if you paint the fence red, for example, then it's going to keep everything in and only reflect red light back. And same with blue light, it will only reflect blue light back. But if you reflect white light, that's all the colors in there. That's the whole spectrum. So if you're going to paint the fence any color, then white would definitely be the best one, I think.
Yeah, it's a little less sus than mylaring the fence as shown off.
Yeah,
And, being
you know what I'm
moving
saying? Mylar the fence. But
just out there with a big roll of alfoil, just wrapping the
Pretty
fence.
white is a good one. But, definitely don't use Mylar. Unless you're in a legal place, then fuck it, man. Do it, whatever.
Yeah.
What would you think, Monkey?
Oh, I know who dropped that question, and I know it was a tongue-in-cheek question.
Oh, right. He's being sarcastic, is he?
It was a slightly, but no, I have to agree. If I was going to paint a fence for a plant, it would probably be white.
Yeah.
Second
Yeah.
would probably be maybe a red or a blue.
It's filmy bowls, it is, and he's trolling us. That's what he's doing. He's out there.
I love it.
Yeah. He also asked as well, I enjoyed What's That Sound, Strain of the Week, and the older High and Homegrown episodes. Will you ever bring that back? Never say never, because we had a different structure. For anybody who knows, we had a different structure to the show back in the day. We've had a few structures. And when we first started, it had lots of different structures. I think it was 7 or 8 different sections to the show where we did Strain of the Week. What the fuck was that? Where you'd try and guess the sound. Stoner Quotes was another one of them. We did loads of different things. Truth or Spoof, that was a fun one. Yep. We just go over 3 different questions and shit. Loads of it was a good fun structure, but the problem was when we got to the Grow Guide section and when we got to the news section, which was pretty much the meat of the show and the interview as well. We had the interview in there. Then we couldn't go into as much detail on some stories as we'd like to because we try and keep the show less than 5 hours long. And if we did, if we did all of those sections and spoke for as long as was necessary for that, it would be a really long show. And people have got things to do, the listeners and the panel members. So we didn't want to sit around for any longer than 2.5 hours, really. So we had to keep the sections short. And eventually we covered lots of different strains. We covered lots of different quotes, loads of different stuff. And it was getting more and more difficult to find subject matter for them sections of the show. So we got rid of the smaller sections, expanded the Grow Guides, the news and the interviews, and moved on to a new structure. And the thing is with the interviews as well is every week we'd put just 20 to 30 minutes of each interview we do into the show. And a lot of the interview just got thrown on the cutting room floor, it's got edited out. And we didn't get the whole interview out. But now with the structure we have like an hour, 40 minutes to an hour worth of news. And then we have an interview that gets released, which is between 1 hour and 2 hours. Then the Friday we do the Grow Guides, which is about an hour as well. So a lot more content gets put out this way. We just don't have all of them breakup sections.
Yeah, imagine talking to somebody on an interview for 3 hours and only putting out 35 minutes of it. That happened.
Yeah, it happens, man. So, we can do them sometimes for fun if we have time in the show and things like that. But we usually, not usually, we haven't done it for a while because we're very busy. But we have the after party section, which will go to the end of this show so you can see it. And that's where we usually do different things like that, little competitions, just have a laugh, talk about stuff.
Yeah, we got a few more things we have to give away, huh?
That's right.
It's 100 episodes, my gosh.
But just don't underestimate how much work it takes to set up the show. When it has all of those sections like that, it would take me 3 or 4 hours on a Sunday afternoon to set everything up, make sure everything was all ready. It's hard work, man. It's much easier to do this kind of format because it doesn't have as much setup work and it doesn't have as much editing time afterwards. So one day maybe we'll make money out of the show and we can hire an editor and a producer and shit like that. So I don't have to do it all, and then we can throw in whatever fucking sections we like. Then we can do it for 5 hours and be like, "Fuck you, we're doing it anyway." In time. That was a bit of a long explanation, but I hope you understand why we do these things. But a lot of people seem to like the new section as well. Well, the new format of the show where we have the longer Grow Guides, where we can go into more detail and have discussions rather than just presenting the news story in 5 minutes. People like it, I think. That's what I get told from the listeners. Anyway, but always open to feedback, man. So just let us know if you have any questions. You know where you can find us over at Percy's Grow Room. You can find Monkey, me, or Bubblehawk. You can email us at hindhomegrown@gmail.com. Or find us on social networks. We're around, man. So if you have any input or any suggestions, feedback, comments, anything like that, then let us know. Anything to add on that section there, actually? You good? Amanda, anything to add?
Just that I like the idea of Guess That Sound.
Yeah, we called it "What the fuck was that?" and we wanted it initially to be played at any random time during the show, and it was played at any random time during the show. And then it encourages people to go and listen to the download, and then at a random time something happens, and then we're like, "What the fuck was that?" And
Well, what the fuck was that?
Yeah.
It should have. We should have. I feel like we should have done a "What the fuck is that?"
it goes into the download. Add it into your show. We'll pass it on to you, and if anybody wants to go listen to it, check it out on their one.
All right.
But we had a few sections that were just fun to break up the longer sections, which were the news and the
Yeah.
interview and the grow guides. You know?
Yeah,
And they were fun, but they took work.
it's hard work. This stuff.
That's right, man. But it's good fun at the same time. So you just like you have to be a little bit masochistic, sadomasochistic to try and do this. I think you have to hate yourself a little bit, you know.
Just a little.
But we have one more question here we'll quickly cover. Is there a set of days above ground or nodes on the plant you are looking before starting LST? And should all training be done before flipping to flower? Thanks, everyone. That's from Jalert. So a set number of days, not necessarily. Plants grow at different rates, and one at 5 days might be completely different to one at 10 days, you know. Or it might be the same. It depends on the plant.
I would go by node count pretty much on that, wouldn't you, Mackie?
Yeah, node count is definitely the best way. I like to top the plant first and then do the training after that. But I don't even do a lot of training anymore. I top it, let the plant grow for a while, and then train if you need to. And all you're trying to do really is trying to keep them top branches a level canopy and try and get the side branches to shoot up so they're all the same length. That's all you're trying to do really with training. If you want to go more extreme than that and go full LST, bending over the main stem and things like that, then you can start a week or two after the plant's grown. But it's just going to be a little bit more risky. You know, you might accidentally pull it out of the roots in the medium. You don't want that shit happening. So just make sure that it's well anchored so you can bend it without pulling it out of the roots. And you can train whenever, really. Just be gentle.
I generally start around about week 3, depending on how it's going. And then from about this is on autos, but from about week 3 until about week 5, week 6, when we're starting to get into stretch. And then I just sort of adjust through stretch to keep it all nice and even, or as even as I can. And then from there, once it gets too woody, you can't really be bending anyway. You're going to snap them. So there is a point, and you'll feel that as you're doing it and you're training, and as you do it more often, you get to a point where you can work out that it's not going to bend. Yeah. And if you continue to do what you're doing, you're going to snap the thing in half.
Yeah. When you see flowers start to form, stop training. That's what I would recommend. It's the best way to go. But if they're in a scrog, then try and stop a few days before that. You know, you want to make sure. But we've got episodes on how to do training, and we've got episodes on topping as well, and also episodes on LST. You can find them all in the Grow Guide section. So there's everything there. You can go and find out all that information. It's all covered in the episodes you need. But it's completely up to you. It's your plant. Do with it as you wish. It will survive. And Gillert's also said there that they're scared of topping. So don't be scared. The topping is more stressful to you, the grower, than it is to the plant. The plant loves it.
Believe me, yes. I felt the same way. I mean, first plant you top, you feel like you're going to kill the darn thing. Now, I mean, it's literally walk by, pinch with your thumbnail, and keep on moving.
Like, that's got the right amount of nodes. Pinch.
Yeah, looks about right. Pop, going, you're done. That quick.
Yeah.
You'll be fine. Don't be scared. Do it, man. So that's all the questions as well. And that's all the mistakes. I think that is the Grow Guide section done with for today. It's 4:20 somewhere, so hit that shit. So yeah, thank you very much for joining us, Amanda. It's been
Thanks
fun,
for having me.
Yeah, it's different having just one of you as well, and not both.
Well, it's weird for me too, because this is the first time that we've been separate.
Oh, really? This is the first time?
Ooh, yeah.
Wow.
But there's nobody else I'd rather be with than you guys.
Oh, that's cool, man. We appreciate that.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you.
I'm glad you enjoy having time with us. You know, we have fun.
Yeah.
Even if we talk over each other sometimes.
Yeah, well, I was going to say that, and even if the conversation does skew off in weird and wonderful directions.
Talk about smuggling budgies and shit. Yeah. And drinking lube. What the fuck happened there?
Oh Lord, yeah. That was a weird story, but I had to bring it up because you don't see that every day.
No, I'm
No.
glad you did though.
It's
That's
like
going to be my entire week's conversation with people.
drinking lube.
Drinking lube.
Did you hear about this
Ooh,
chick?
Have you tried that new lube they have over at the dispensary this month? Oh my God.
You know, they called it Juicy Lucy, you know.
Like a cocktail that has lube as the base. Oh my gosh.
Oh,
That's terrible though,
hilarious.
man. That's so terrible. It's like, how could you drink that? You must have been so desperate to get high, man.
Really, man.
Yeah.
I think that the article they actually did say something to that effect, realizing that she didn't have the effects that she wanted and realizing the only thing she had in the house was lube. So I'm still thinking like, yeah, that's really got to be hard up for that though.
Yeah, I thought it was something to do with she was using it for that purpose, and then
She
but
was.
had used
Intended.
smoked it before, and found that it was a different sort of feel. So she's like, well, I don't have any flour or anything, so I'll just give it a crack. And
The bud tender who sold it to her, or the vendor who sold it to her, basically said that she had thought about that before and had tried a little bit of it and said, yes, you could get high on it. That's how I remember the story. So that she had confirmation bias that it would work, but
Yeah.
I don't, maybe
don't
the
think that-
conversation didn't say how much you had to drink, but surely 450 milligrams. Holy shit.
Yeah.
That just sounds uncomfortable.
I feel like you'd need to like keep that in your mouth for a while.
Oh God. Oh,
Little sublingual absorption needs to happen there.
you know, oh God. You know that swallow that. Oh,
I mean,
just
we're talking all kinds of absorption here.
oh God.
Exactly. A little THC lube here shot. Hey, how about a shot?
Oh my God. Yeah.
nothing like a mouthful of medicated baby oil, eh?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hey, get the funnel out. We're gonna do funnel shots on this one, man.
Yeah.
Beer bong, yeah.
Just got one of those hats with the little things in it, It's got
Exactly.
one bottle either side.
Two on each side with that.
That's the competition, Everybody's got to drink a liter of this shit. Oh God.
Oh my
Through a
God.
straw.
Drink a
Walking
liter
with
and then
3
survive
bottles
the
of lube with
ensuing week.
straws in it.
And there we go, everybody. That was this week's Grow Guides. I hope you're learning a lot from all these Grow Guides. This was episode 29. So there's 28 episodes before this. So if you are learning how to grow cannabis, then you can refer back to any of those to help you learn what you need to learn so you can grow your own. You can also refer these episodes to friends if you have friends who want to learn how to grow as well. And that would be massively appreciated. Thank you again to Amanda from the High Ladies podcast for joining us this episode. And don't forget, this week there won't be any episodes for you to download. We're going to take a week off, so I don't have to do all the editing and the organizing and things like that. There's still plenty of episodes for you to download in the past. There's over 160 different episodes you can download from your favorite podcasting network. So make sure you downloaded all of the episodes and you're up to date with all the content. And then we'll be back next week for the live show, which is not on this Sunday, but the Sunday after we'll be back for the live show over on youtube.com/highandhomegrown. I hope to see you there. But in the meantime, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for downloading the show. Thank you very much for listening. And we'll catch you on the next one in a couple of weeks. Stay high, stay safe, and we'll catch you in a couple of weeks. So catch you soon. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye.